Is the University of New Mexico ready to start taking the college athletic world seriously? Can New Mexico football catch up to the admittedly great New Mexico basketball program? How much value do they have? Can they climb out of the pit? This is the Let's Run podcast. Folks, welcome into the show today. We want to thank you for checking it out. Really appreciate all the positive feedback that we have on the recent UNLV stuff that's been talking about the 2025 season. Really happy to be continuing the conference realignment series. Fun to go through these schools, fun to talk to these fan bases, and fun to analyze the world of realignment as it comes. And so today we are talking about the University of New Mexico. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please do hit that like button. Please do hit that subscribe button. We're going through all the schools, all the Pac-12 schools, all the Mountain West schools. We'll even go over many of the AAC schools and kind of see where things go. It does not seem like we're going to be able to get through them before the beginning of the college football season. There's just too many schools, and it's tough when you're working full time to get all of these videos out. I'd have to do like 2 or 3 a day, and I just don't have that kind of time. So guys, thank you so much for checking it out. Let's talk about New Mexico. New Mexico is historically, one of the worst brands in college football, but they do have a very serious basketball program that with a fan base that really seems to care about, their stature, about the college basketball world. And despite, their football program really having struggled for a long time, they are showing signs as a program and as a school that they want to take college football seriously. Where in the past, they hired a lot of FCS guys, and honestly, the best comparison to New Mexico football that you could make in the college football world was UNLV, a school that focused primarily on basketball, that didn't really care about football, that just kind of did the bare minimum to get their media deal and put all of their money and eggs in the basketball basket. However, that is no longer the case. The administration at New Mexico has signaled that they're willing to take this seriously. And so let's talk about New Mexico. Their recent history, UNM was a founding member of the Mountain West Conference in the early 2000s alongside schools like BYU, TCU, UNLV. And they have a long history in the Mountain West, but have pretty consistently been the bottom dweller football program alongside, up until recently, UNLV. In terms of their athletic expenses versus what their athletic department generates, expenses wise, they're pretty much squarely in the middle of the Mountain West. Their basketball program makes them money. Their football program makes them a little bit of money. They spend money. They don't spend a ton of money, but they spend similar amounts to schools like Boise State. They spend more than schools like Utah State, not as much as schools like Air Force, UNLV, or San Diego State. But they do invest, but they don't seem to be willing to take that next step, specifically on the football side. That is until last season when they hired Bronco Mendenhall. They had a coach, I believe his name was Danny Gonzalez. And he'd come off of 3 pretty mediocre seasons, and New Mexico said, we need to do more than this. And so they brought in Bronco Mendenhall after his time at the University of Virginia, who is just a very serious football coach. Now, obviously, Bronco Mendenhall ended up leaving them after only 1 season and going 5-7. To go up to coach at Utah State University. But I still think that hiring a guy like Bronco Mendenhall and their most recent coach hire in Jason Eck has really flashed a level of commitment to their football program that I don't think they had before. And I think they're hiring good guys with good reputations, with good personalities that are just serious football people. And by all accounts, everybody seems to really like Jason Eck. And we'll talk about him a little bit more later. They have recently, the Board of Regents in the state of New Mexico has recently approved a student fee hike. So they're finding ways to generate more revenue in their athletic department. And the Lobo Club, a lot of this is for basketball. The Lobo Club has really been showing more of a commitment. They generally do have one of the best NIL situations in all of the Group of 5 in terms of mid-major basketball. But they have money, they have investment, but they just have never been able to get over that hump. Let's look at their facilities. So I'll talk about the University Stadium first. It's a big football venue, seats about almost 40,000. sits at 5,100 feet of elevation. You can see I was doing my Wikipedia research here. And they never fill it up. I mean, I'm not a big fan of their football stadium. It needs serious renovation. It needs serious work. It's probably a little too big for the types of crowds that they can get. If they could get 30,000 people there, that'd be great. They're usually pretty low in the attendance realm. University Stadium, if they had a rockin' football program, could be an adequate stadium, but it just doesn't have the modern things you'd really want in a college football arena. It does have the size, and that's good. I mean, having a big stadium gives you potential to fill it, but and I like some of the things that they're doing to promote attendance this year for this upcoming season, which I'll get into in just a sec. But University Stadium, it's functional for what the University of New Mexico needs right now, but it's too big. It's not modern enough. And I think that if they really want to be taken seriously as a football program, they're probably going to have to put some money into the stadium. Regardless, if they can just win and fill it up a bit more, that'll really help them. So not a big fan of University Stadium. It's perfectly fine, but it's just not a place that I think is a great place to play football. Their basketball arena, on the other hand, the Pit, I had the pleasure, not last year, but the previous year, to go to a game at the Pit. It was a UNLV New Mexico game. The Pit is a magical college basketball arena, truly one of, and I would say pretty easily, in my opinion, the best stadium in the best arena, I should say, in the Mountain West. And obviously that would include the new Pac-12 schools. I like it more than Viejas Arena. I like it more than where Utah State plays, Spectrum. I certainly like it more than the Thomas and Mack because it gets full. The fans really care. They show up. They go to the game. They have awesome attendance in their basketball. They're pretty consistently selling out or near selling out games. The Pit is an outstanding place to watch a basketball game and a really fun arena. So facility-wise, Pit, amazing. Their university football stadium, not so great. They've got a pretty nice practice facility. The Toe, I believe it's called the Athletic Performance Center, LF Toe Deem Athletic Facility. I think they've got fine facilities, but they're a little bit behind in terms of the group of five from where they need to be to really perform at the top levels. But they're probably good enough that if you had an excellent coach, you could get by with them. But there's a little bit of room to grow there. In terms of attendance, football-wise, they're towards the bottom of the Mountain West. 16,000 per game in a 39,000 seat stadium is pretty rough. They do have some flashes, when they play schools like New Mexico State where more people come, same with Reno and UNLV. Those games are pretty well attended generally. But, at 16,000 per game, there's so much room to grow in that stadium. And, I think that if the city of New Mexico got behind their football program a bit more, last season they had that incredible win over Washington State when Washington State was nationally ranked. And if that city would get behind that football program more, you could have a pretty fun environment. Because if you look at basketball, I mean, they're getting over 13,000 per game, several games at capacity. I mean, 13,000 over the course of a season. And we're talking about 18 or 19 games at the Pit. Football attendance historically incredibly weak. Basketball attendance very strong. Coach Jason Eck, their new coach, is doing a really cool promotion where he's basically allowing kids to go free for the entire season. I believe anybody under the age of 12 for the 2025 season gets into the stadium free. Albuquerque is a city of, I think it's around 600,000, 500,000. It's decent size. It's pretty similar size to, it's a bit bigger actually than the Boise metro area. In fact, I think it's a couple 100,000 bigger, but it's the biggest city in the state, and it's the most important city in the state of New Mexico. New Mexico is certainly the flagship brand in that state, definitely ahead of New Mexico State, which I think they kind of suck. I'm not a big fan of New Mexico State, but that city just needs to get behind that program and needs to support, and it needs to realize, and I think UNLV is doing a good job of kind of shifting and framing the college football world. College football reigns. And college basketball is great. You want to have a good college basketball program, but the fans need to get into college football for a program, especially in terms of something as important as conference realignment, to be taken seriously. And I think that Coach Jason Eck recognizes this, is looking for ways to increase New Mexico's investment, and I think he's a good hire. I'll get into him right now, but let's talk about their football program. from like 2005 to 2016, their football program was rough. It's not always great, but they have one of the worst records from 2016 to now. A 20 and 16, a 20 and 67 record, multiple 11-1 or 1-11 or 2-10 seasons. My mistake, I misspoke there. Just 1-11 or 2-10 seasons. Last season was better at 5-7. Bronco Mendenhall led them to a really good upset of Washington State, which was the their first ranked win in years. I think UNLV still doesn't have a ranked win at this point. But after Bronco Mendenhall left, they hired Coach Jason Eck from the University of Idaho. But honestly, consistently on the recruiting ranking wise, they're pretty close to the bottom of the Mountain West recruiting rankings. And it's not just that that Coach Jason Eck had to replace Bronco Mendenhall. They also lost Coach Richard Pitino, who went to Xavier. I think it's Xavier. I'm not 100% sure. It's not Xavier. I can't remember what school he went to. But to have New Mexico football and New Mexico basketball. There was a cool article in The Athletic about this. Chris Vanini talked about it, and he said that both of that, that whole athletic program made record revenues in the 2024-2025 season, and yet they lost both of their head coaches and kind of had to restart over from the beginning. And so it highlights, how difficult it is for New Mexico. And I think that they're showing the right signs, but there's still a little bit of a ways to go. Let's talk about Jason Eck. This was a really fun Office parody they did to promote their football team this season. He was head coach at Idaho from 2022 to 2024, led the Vandals, which I am actually I guess I'm not an alumni because I didn't graduate from the University of Idaho, but I did go to the University of Idaho for my first year of law school. He led them to back-to-back FCS playoff appearances. He had worked at schools like South Dakota State, Montana State, Western Illinois, and South Dakota. He was a pivotal part of South Dakota State's 2020 FCS National Championship run. He's kind of a traditional, kind of physical, grounded pound coach. Really coaches discipline, balanced, a balanced approach. He's willing to throw the ball. He's willing to run the ball. He doesn't have anything that he does more than another. He's just kind of a balanced coach. He's a program builder, and he took Idaho from a losing record to a top 10 FCS program in 3 seasons. Which shows a lot of potential for him. And I think that New Mexico, in going after Jason Eck, went after a guy that they think that they can keep for, if he has success. New Mexico is trying to keep him for 3 to 5 years. They're trying to keep him until 2030 so that they can build up that program. And I think he can do it. But, a lot remains to be seen. He has basically brought an FCS all-star team with him from Idaho to the University of New Mexico. And so seeing him, going into the future, and it's going to be tough, but I think that the school has shown the motivation to achieve this. I kind of think that Reno University and New Mexico they're obviously not the same, but they kind of inhabit, in my opinion, a similar place in the college football world. Both are situated in pretty rough cities. Reno is among the 10 worst places to live in the Milky Way galaxy, and Albuquerque is also a pretty rough city. Both of these programs tend to focus, perhaps overemphasize their basketball programs, and basketball can be a little fickle, unless you have a guy that's a lifelong coach who's going to stay there for 20 years. At a mid-major level, basketball, you're going to have ups and downs. Football, if you're investing in year after year, you can consistently kind of build something. But, I think that Reno and New Mexico are both pretty prime examples of schools that need to say, hey, we're still going to try and be good at basketball, but football is going to be the first thing that comes to mind when we make every decision going into the future. And I don't know that either of the universities, although I think New Mexico is more so like this. I think New Mexico is trying to get to this point, but both of these universities need to. And I will do an episode on Sparks Community College, the University of Reno. But I think they both need to just say, hey, we're football focused. That's what's going to determine our realignment futures. And if you're good football and you spend a ton of money on football, basketball can kind of be dragged along and helped by kind of an osmosis. And when you focus on the money-making sport, you can make money, and football is the money-making sport. So I think Reno and New Mexico, especially moving into the new Mountain West, need to kind of reorient themselves to fit into the modern world. And New Mexico's doing that. Reno, not so much. I've got New Mexico going 4-8 in this 2025 season. Again, first season for Coach Jason Eck. Bronco Mendenhall took quite a bit with him, so he was rebuilding essentially. Let me go through game by game, kind of what I see them doing. I think they will they will lose to Michigan, obviously. They're the sacrificial lamb, although with all the with all the crazy things going on at the University of Michigan right now, it would be kind of fun if New Mexico went into the big house and was able to beat Michigan, but it's probably not going to happen. It's not going to happen. They're going to go 0-1. They will beat Idaho State. They will lose at UCLA. I don't think New Mexico State's going to be very good next year, so they will beat New Mexico State. They will lose to San Jose State. They will lose to Boise. That would put them at 2-4. Then they will have a home game against the Reno University. I think that they will win that. Utah State at home. I think I see a team like Utah State, Bronco Mendenhall. I think I see them beating New Mexico. I think they will lose to Colorado State. Obviously, they will lose at UNLV. I think they will lose to Colorado State. They might win that game versus Air Force. And the San Diego State game, I don't think San Diego State's going to be very good next year either. And so that's kind of a toss-up game. But ultimately, when I go through game by game, I see a 4-8 as the most realistic outcome. Could they get to 6-6 if they pull a crazy upset here or there? It's possible. They would probably have to pick off a game like Utah State. They would probably have to beat Reno. They would have to upset. They would have to beat San Diego State. They'd have to beat Air Force. It's a tough schedule, especially early, but it does lighten up as the year kind of goes on. And so, 6-6 is probably their ceiling. Their floor, I would say, is 3-9. I have them at 4-8, but they could be a little better, a little worse than that. I think 4-8 is pretty fair, and I think that Jason Eck will put the Lobos in at least a competitive position throughout the year. So, what's the conclusion here? As a UNLV fan, I want the new Mountain West to be as good as it possibly can be, and it's not going to do that unless a school like New Mexico decides that college football, which it is the most important thing to invest in. And I worry about schools like Reno, schools like New Mexico, that they're not quite ready to take that leap and to let go of college basketball. Now, obviously, keep investing in college basketball, keep winning games. But when your athletic department is having a discussion, your football program has to come first. And your basketball program, maybe you can delegate part of its responsibility to somebody else, but your primary concern always has to be your football program. I don't know that New Mexico is going to be very impressive next season, but I do think that they will be classy. I do think they will be a hardworking team that will give a couple of teams some tighter games than they would have liked. And I really do hope, for the new Mountain West's sake, for UNLV's sake, that New Mexico is ready to take that leap and to climb out of the pit of the college football world that they have been in for such a long time. How valuable are they right now? I think New Mexico does have a little bit of value as the flagship university in their state, in a decent sized metro area. But I think that the Pac-12, should have a school like New Mexico in it. I think Reno should be in the new Pac-12. I think UNLV should be in the new Pac-12. I don't think that they weren't good enough to be a part of what would be the best G5 conference. But they do need to start taking football seriously. And hopefully with Coach Jason Eck, they do that. So guys, that is my evaluation of New Mexico. Lots of room to grow, tough road ahead, but I do like New Mexico and I love their basketball program. Fun, outstanding place to see a game. I hope you guys will like this video, will subscribe. I'm pretty sure the next school that we are going to do is a doozy. It's going to be Utah State. Excited to cover the Aggies, excited to hear some of the responses from you about that. Please like the video, please subscribe to the channel, and let's run.